What is up, network? Today's podcast is supported by Bose Aviation. With over 30 years of serving active noise canceling headsets to pilots, Bose is known for performance, quality, and reliability. The A20 aviation headset, with 30% greater noise reduction than conventional aviation headsets, is one of the lightest, most comfortable around-ear headsets on the market. The ProFlight Series 2 builds upon the advanced technology of the original and is the most lightweight, compact, and comfortable aviation headset Bose has ever produced. To see which headset is right for you, visit bose.com/aviation. Hey all, welcome back to another episode of the Pilot Network Podcast. This is a two-parter. That's right, this is the second part of my interview with Ross Franquemont, the U2 pilot turned airline pilot turned amazing photographer. We've covered a lot of stuff already, and we're going to cover a bunch more in this podcast. Thanks again for joining us, and now on to Ross.
They put the suit on that, and then they when they put the helmet on, they turn on the pure oxygen, and that starts flowing. For most of my time in the U2, we had a requirement: you had to be on oxygen an hour prior to takeoff. So that point, when you put the helmet on, that just changed just recently for single seat U2s because they've done a modification with the cockpit, and the cockpit's a little bit lower pressure. But you still have to be on oxygen then, and they'll click everything into place. They'll click your gloves into place. And then for me, this was the worst part for me. Every single flight, it's the ground tests they do from there. And and I learned basically, and this actually got a little bit worse as I got older, but I had a little bit of claustrophobia. And a lot of people, I would say a lot of the population probably has a little bit of claustrophobia. It's just you've never been in a circumstance that really triggered your claustrophobia. Mm-hmm. Most Air Force pilots have, military pilots have, because you probably got put in a box at some point, mm-hmm. Up in a fun little campsite up in Fairchild. Sure. It's something about being closed in, and when the face seal kind of closes down, and you just have this face ring around you. For me, it was kind of a thing where if I started heating up, when you're in the spacesuit, it's basically blocking your body's natural defenses against heating up. Normally, you start heating up, your skin just radiates the heat out, or you start sweating, and the sweat evaporates, takes the heat away. None of that can happen in the spacesuit. So for me, I had to keep a good amount of vent air coming into the suit, kind of circulate around me. And if I did, I was fine. But there were some times, literally, I was just like, man, this is kind of agonizing. Because when they do those tests, they cut off all the vent air to test the suit for leaks. They'll inflate the suit up. So you're literally sitting there completely inflated, which basically means a lot higher pressure on you, which also means higher heat, on you. And sometimes if it's not testing right, they'll sit there and they'll like hit the little tester machine a dozen times trying to get the needle to move right. And I'm just sitting there just heating up, and I can feel like my body temperature rise. I'm like, this sucks.
Oh man.
So I would say that for me, that was the worst part. Once I was over all that, it was pretty cake. They finished putting all the stuff on you once all the tests indicate the suit is working properly. They put you in the jet. Usually you're going out to the jet about 30 to 40 minutes prior to takeoff, so they have time to get the seat ready. They put you in the seat. They strap you in. About 15 minutes prior to takeoff, you're gonna disconnect from. They have a portable cooler that you're on that's providing you both the pure oxygen and air into your suit. They're going to disconnect that, and that could be a really agonizing couple minutes because you don't have any air from that point on. They put you on the jet, vent air. You don't have any air until you get the engine started on the jet.
Oh,
and So you would be sitting there, and suddenly to be for the jet to start, it requires a huffer basically to pump air in.
Mm-hmm.
If that broke, they're like, "Oh, we have to go get a new one." And I was always like, "How long is that going to take?" And of course, they're like, "About 5 minutes."
Yeah,
and then
sure it is.
15 minutes later, you're like, "Man, this sucked." But the in general, they worked. It was pretty good. You got everything started. You got all the air going in. But still, you didn't go that much air until you're actually airborne, because the vent worked off how much air was going through the engine.
So it was like a tweet.
Yeah. It was kind of a race, especially in a place like you and I were, where we were stationed together, and where it can be 120 degrees and 95% humidity during the day. It was kind of a race to get off the ground there, because you were not comfortable until it happened.
And it's funny, not being in a spacesuit. I'm shocked that I can even remotely come to the same conclusion. But in the tanker, we had a few that were pretty bad days. And I remember one day we were taking off. We were we were holding short, and they told us that we'd have to sit there for about 4. Well, we didn't get a time. No idea.
Yeah.
Expect further clearance or whatever time. So we're holding short. I was his co-pilot, and the next sector, the next country, basically put a stop on anybody traversing their airspace.
Yeah.
We sat there for 45 minutes. I remember I took my flight suit down to my boots and underwear because I was so hot. And it was so hot, and the air was blowing so badly across the so we had both cockpit windows open. It felt like a blow dryer. So we were devising whether we wanted to be in pain with the air blowing across us. 100 and God knows what degrees. It was probably 150. Like I'm not even joking, because of radiant heat off the asphalt and everything else. Or if we wanted to just be miserable and shut the windows and stop getting the stuff blown across our face, and then just feel like that, where you're sitting in this space. And I mean, it's not a space suit, but it's definitely confined. So we chose to close the windows, and it was,
it's the same idea. Yeah.
It was miserable. It was, and the funny part was my aircraft commander, I won't say his last name, but Nate, who is now a big shot in the Air Force. I hope he hears this. He was not very pleased with what was going on. And remember those Nokia phones that we had? Oh, they're all over the Middle East. He took that phone and he tossed it up on the glare shield, probably somewhere in the first 15 minutes of all this going on, and we forgot about it. It was up there for the whole flight. So we got back, we took it into comm. We're like, the little comm section in ops. We're like, hey, we don't know if this is going to work anymore. They go, why? What'd you guys do? And he pulled it open, and it was just goo, because all the LCD stuff had melted everywhere. And they're like, what did you do? Put it in a microwave? Or like, essentially, we put it in a very slow cook microwave, where we were as well. God knows how many years of life that took off each one of us. But that was, so I can't sympathize for sure, but I can empathize. I think I got those correct.
Yeah.
That is, to me, that is one of the big torture things, is when you start to heat up. Like, for those of you, and I think I don't want to overstep my bounds, but I think Ross will either agree or say, he'll give a basic idea. For those of you who've ever had a full body MRI, I would say that, to me, that was one of the worst medical experiences I've ever had in my life. I mean, I'd rather get about anything else done that doesn't include dental stuff than sit in a full body MRI again when you can't move and you're sweating, because it is really, really. And then they say, oh, we got to take 10 more minutes because we missed something. Yeah. And that happened when I was a teenager. And I remember I was going, I actually said towards the end, I'm like, can you guys let me out of here now? Because I was starting to lose it. I was in there for about an hour and 20 minutes, and I was like, it felt like I was in there for a month.
An MRI will trigger your claustrophobia too, definitely. Yeah.
So there you go. Those of you who've had a full body MRI, you are basically one step from being a U-2 pilot.
You can, if you want to keep doing that every day, But, it's not that bad. I mean, and to me, the payoff was always worth it.
So and that's, I was just about to say, we've talked about the misery.
Yeah.
And the pain of getting. So one quick thing before we get on from the pain. So from the time that you showed up to the squadron the day you were flying to the time that you took off, that prep, how long was it? Because you had the hour oxygen.
It was generally a 2-hour process from showtime to takeoff. So
that's not the worst. That's really about the same for a lot of other.
Yeah. And it you know, and a lot of it was like, especially when we're deployed, it's like, we're going to fly a 10-hour mission and work again the very next day. You had to be on this 12-hour cycle.
Sure.
You know, a 2-hour show, 10-hour mission, and then you're gone and show back up again 12 hours later or so.
Yeah.
Just for the crew rest thing. And usually our in single pilot, like crew duty day limits and stuff like that, were usually 12 hours.
Sure. Yeah. And I remember talking to the guys a little bit about that and how they rotated out. You know, it was like a fly day, non-fly, but on the hook day, and then an off day, and then a fly day again. It was kind of like that was the rotation, or some iteration.
Yeah, there was usually some variation. It was like just a rolling thing, and that's how you made it through your deployment. You know, it's just like it was Groundhog Day typically, kind of on that rotation.
And you know, I think for those non-mil pilots who listen to this, you guys out there and gals, of course, you know, I'm a Midwestern guy. Everything is guys to us in the Midwest. I think one of the things that where military folks earn their spurs is through that deployment cycle, or some of the stuff that they go through as a military pilot kind of earlier in their career. And then again, at the end of their career, I would say are the two places where they earn their spurs as far as getting their feet wet in the aviation industry. Whereas the regional bubbas out there who burn, gas for 8 legs a day and, do 4 consecutive days with only 10 hours of rest in between.
Yeah.
That is essentially the same thing that you do when you're deployed, or a lot of us did when we were deployed. Now, the deployments nowadays are a little bit different for most airframes across the fleet. Not saying they're better, not saying they're worse, not saying anything about them other than they're different.
Yeah.
But when I deployed my first deployment, we flew a sortie, landed, and basically got an hour and a half or 2 hours, whatever the legal number was, of downtime before we were put right back into crew rest. So essentially, we were then again flying right on the backside. We're 100% opposite to what we just did. That's what we were flying. And you do that 2 or 3 days in a row, and all of a sudden you are in zombie land. And caveat of all this, and I will turn it back over to Ross for the cool stuff we're going to talk about, is one of my big things that, and I was taught this by a good friend of mine who did his a master's paper on this with his buddy. I'm a big fan of controlled cockpit controlled rest in the cockpit, and I think FAA should mandate it. This is one of the few times I make my own little opinion noted. I think the Air Force did a great job with crew concept aircraft that controlled rest is allowable.
Yeah.
He's a big proponent of every 28 minutes of rest. And then you do that as many times as you can during a flight to get through that cycle, and you'll feel really refreshed. They actually did that back in the beginning of the war. I think when they were flying out of Saudi. And he said, you'd look at other tanker crews and they look like zombies, and they were pretty refreshed. So I wish that we would do that across the board in aviation, because I think, and I know some people listening, oh my gosh, listen, it is okay. In fact, most pilots will tell you to have one guy resting and the other guy refreshed and awake is better than two folks who are
struggling
to maintain their awakeness, not wokeness. That's different, but awakeness.
That is totally different.
Yeah, totally different. So there's my little plug for controlled rest in the cockpit. I think we should be fighting for that in the next iteration of FARs that come out. But anyways, cool stuff. You too. So I have specific questions first, and these are going to be kind of boom, boom, boom. You don't have to. I mean, we'll go. So, what we know that I know there's stuff that you can't say, but there's most of the stuff won't get close to that if you can't just say, hey, you know what? It's, you guys aren't cool enough, so don't worry about it. What's the highest that you can tell us that you've ever flown?
So I can legally say I've been above 70,000 feet. And
Okay.
that's,
That's still pretty up. That's up there.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not a whole lot more than that, but yeah,
that's neat. That's cool.
Yeah.
So up there, besides seeing that the earth is flat, and that there's no,
it's
bend,
a flat plane that stretches on forever until you hit the ice wall.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And then you have the night walker. The walkers come. See, I've already forgotten because the last season was such a disappointment that I've got it out of my mind.
Yeah.
So up that high, what's what would you say top 3 coolest things you've seen? Northern Lights aside, because we can actually go see that you saw that and what that was.
Yeah.
3 things besides the Northern Lights.
Well, so getting to see the eclipse, the great eclipse a couple years ago. So,
you were airborne when that happened?
So yeah, and I have a on my website. So, which, by the way, so if anybody, just so in case you're wondering, I don't have to do this at the end.
Yeah, we will.
Well, but if you just Google right now Extreme Ross photography, you would find my website. So there's a picture on there that shows the eclipse, and it's like a composite of a bunch of different shots of the moon, or of the sun with the moon moving from it. If you click on that, it goes to a story on Air and Space magazine that I wrote about that flight. So about the preparation for that flight and everything like that. And I actually wrote that story right after I flew the Northern Lights flight, and I landed in the afternoon and was up at like midnight in England. I decided to go ahead and bang that out. I banged it out on my phone. But
you typed an article for Air and Space magazine on your phone?
I did, yeah. So
Jason Depew, eat your heart out.
Yeah.
I just wanted to tell Jason, our staff writer, that he's got some catching up to do.
So so I did that on my phone, and then they wanted to publish it right away. The Air Force was they were kind of mulling over whether it was going to be. They were like, "Oh yeah, it's good, but let's not do it." And then so eventually, when I retired, I'm like, "Okay, you guys can go ahead and publish this now." So even though there's nothing like that in it, nothing that's like down on the Air Force. In fact, it's all pretty positive on the all the people that helped out and stuff. But
I have to say, so far, Ross, we've been very positive about the Air Force, and I guess maybe I'm still employed. That's kind of why we're doing it. But no. I ingest. The opportunities they gave you. So okay, so we got the eclipse, which is amazing because there was a lot of people who saw it flying just commercially. I can't imagine what it looked like from above flight level 600. So it's number 2.
So I don't know I guess one specific one of these, but seeing the sunset at night, or rise, but I saw many more sunsets from the cockpit. There's something about, I don't know if it's from being in the stratosphere or whatever, but the light works a little bit differently. You see a very distinct, what they call the Terminator, this is the shadow of the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing the flat earthers would probably say isn't real, but it's literally the sun when it goes over the edge of the Earth, and you see this. It's like a straight line through the atmosphere. It's like very distinct. So that just seeing it go from day to night up from up there is just one of those things. It's just phenomenal, and I've tried to take a bunch of pictures of it. In fact, I'm working on one now that from a few months ago, before I retired, I think will show it really well. But there's
cool.
some on my website as well. But just seeing that, I think that's that itself is one of the most amazing things. Let's see, number 3. I don't probably again probably just saying just being up at night, seeing the I would say the close thing between seeing the stars at night and seeing the tops of thunderstorms during the day. But, now that I think about combining those, one time on an operational mission, I was over top of about a dozen thunderstorms, and they were like low ones down in like the 30s.
Mm-hmm.
Most other people are gonna have to worry about, but not us. And there was so much lightning going off in these clouds. It looked like I was flying over a dance floor, and that was one of the coolest things. Just and again, I like darken down the cockpit, get my night vision, but it was just like there was just dance floor underneath me. It was just lightning, for 100 miles around me, and I'm just sitting out there. I'm like, this is really cool. But if I had to eject right now, I would be so effed, dude. Yeah. And it was a place that had like big mountains and stuff like that. You should have flown in it.
Yeah, I think I might be able to pick it out of a lineup if I saw it.
off of a map. But
yeah, maybe.
And I'm like, man, really cool to see. But man, that would really
cool if I had to eject. Yeah. For a lot of reasons. It's funny. You just gave me an idea. I'm going to have to make sure I copy this down. I might do a podcast where I'm going to go over ejection stories with guys who have punched.
Oh, yeah.
I know like more than one dude who's punched out of an airplane, which is so bizarre to say that I know that.
Yeah.
But being a tanker guy too, I should know anybody who's punched out of an airplane, but I do. So that, and I mean, those are all things that we can't see as the normal aviation group and just folks who are just into aviation enthusiast types. We'll never be there, but you took a bunch of cool pictures that you guys can all see at Extreme Ross Photography. Is that a .com or is that?
Well, it's part of a SmugMug is the site that hosts it. So, probably the best thing is if you just Google Extreme Ross Photography, it should pop up with that.
Okay.
SmugMug site. There's also a Facebook group. I have a Facebook group that's Extreme Ross Photography, and I need to work on it a little bit more to link the two, where I'm things I'm posting on one go to the other and so forth.
Well, and
that's all.
Offline, we'll talk. I think I know where your next big hit's going to be, where you can really get the business kabooming. And we'll talk about that offline. Yeah. We don't need to waste people's time here because they don't care about that. But good. Well, we'll link some of that stuff in the show notes and hopefully blow you up as much as we can, because I think that's some cool. I mean, honestly, as a minor aviation buff, but I do have an affinity for the YouTube, maybe because it's something that I wanted to do that I never pulled the trigger on, which turned out, I guess hindsight's 2020, turned out really great for me anyways. So I'm perfectly happy knowing that maybe in the next life I'll get to go fly that. But it's I'm cool with getting to share stories from somebody else and live vicariously through what you did. So here we are at the end of the career, as far as the military side of the house goes, starting a new one.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys have done it. I've done it. I've talked numerous times about to people in what I've done in some of my consulting. Man, I had a brain fart there. Some of the consulting stuff I've done, and then also just with the networking and everything else. Ways that I went about navigating the pitfalls and minefields, because I'm the jack of all trades, master of none, flip part 135, 121 cargo, 121, guard reserve, active duty, full-time, part-time, you name it. So maybe I suck at everything. I think that's actually what it is, but
it's good self-reflection.
It is. Yeah. So you are in a field that is highly specific. Has zero like it in the outside. I mean, there's no even contract work that's very similar to what you guys. There's nothing like what you guys do, and you are going to you're taking the bait, and you're saying, you know what, I'm getting close to retirement. I'm going to call it a little bit earlier because you could have kept going for a while, from what I understand from the timeline. If you had a few more years, if you wanted to.
I could have stayed, but I hit my 20. And for me, I think it was, I loved what I did, but there's that time where you reflect on your life and you're like, okay, this is the point where I know I'm gonna move on from that.
Yeah.
And I think it was an advantage that I made that decision a couple of years ago. So I'm gonna stick it out to 20, but 20's it. I'm not sure if I'm gonna pre-answer your question or whatever, but
Pre-answer, dude.
I don't know. But for me, I obviously, I represent that niche of, the Air Force that's decided to stay into 20.
Sure.
And obviously, and so a lot of my journey also applies to people that separate as well. But knowing that you're going to retire, that comes with some benefits. One, like for me, probably the biggest thing is that since I knew it was coming, I knew I had to prepare. And again, it was kind of that keeping all your opportunities open, keeping your doors open, that I mentioned at the beginning. I knew that one, like whenever I retire, like I want to be able to join, I want to be able to retire and be with the company, and overlap them if I can. I want to have as much leave as I can, built up. And, and so for me, it was, I did Emerald Coast. I started a couple of years before I knew I was going to retire, about 2 years. And I knew it was a little bit early, but that definitely, I think that preparation with the one seminar, about 2 years before I retired, just that kind of started triggering my brain into all the different things I need to start thinking about.
Yeah.
Before I start hitting it. So I've had friends who basically just kind of pull the trigger all at once. They weren't, it was great. Some of them get interviews right away, and then they're not quite prepared for it. So.
Would you say that? I know plenty of guys who got hired without doing interview prep and whatever.
Yeah.
In fact, I tell people the only reason I did it was I don't know if I needed it, but I definitely needed to feel confident in my ability.
Yeah.
And for me, it was a de-stressor to start prepping way early. Would you say it was that doing that made the interview process, for me, my interview process was much more enjoyable. I actually relished the opportunity, and I was not stressed. I was not bad stressed at all in the interview process. I still had stress, but I wasn't bad stressed. Would you liken that same thing, or were you like, I sucked at interviewing and I knew I was going to bomb it, and I hadn't done it in 15 years until the U2 thing, so I needed to go and practice because I was, an idiot or whatever? Or was it more like I just needed to make sure that I felt prepped?
I think for me, I feel like a pretty good guy for going, if someone asks me to speak publicly in front of a group or whatever, I feel like I can pull that off okay. But going to do the prep, it focused me on what I needed to be looking at, what I needed to be thinking about.
Yeah.
And it really, and if someone had just said, hey, think of all the cool stories you've done, in your flying career, that's much different than there, where it's like focusing, like, think of, here, have some things that talk about your leadership, your CRM, and that really, and so like when I went in, like I felt like, I had I really kind of reflected on some stuff, and even in the days up to the interview, I was still thinking on stuff. And I'm like, oh yeah, that thing happened a couple of years ago. That was something I didn't think about, put in there, and so I think that starting out with that, a good bit in advance, that definitely helped prepare me. And plus, I started kind of targeting certain airlines early on.
Sure.
And using, again, networking with friends that I know there and stuff like that to kind of start, at least help me out as much as I could. And I lucked out getting an interview interviewing 6 months before I was even available at the airlines and getting hired. And that made my stress, at least for all the stresses that come with retirement, it lowered everything down dramatically.
Yeah.
Because I knew I had all the leave built up. I knew that and even when I interviewed and got hired, I didn't know when I was going to have a class, but I knew I was going to be okay. I knew that, even if I have a few months there, I can either keep working or I can, just be on leave until I start. Having that stuff built up, having that preparation done, I wouldn't say that my finances were in the best shape that I would have wanted them to, but I definitely started kind of focusing on that. It's hard with a family of three to ever say that your finances are exactly where you want them to be.
Yeah, but, sure. Well, we have talked to plenty of airline captains who are 64 about ready to retire, and they've got some work to do, and they don't have a lot of time to do it in. So we all understand that, right? I think we're also, there's a good chunk of us that we worry so much about it that in the end we're actually better off than we want to believe we are. It's kind of that negate the positivity so much because it's plan for the worst, hope for the best. Kind of thing. I actually had a captain once say this to me, and it was really awesome. I actually say it all the time. Is plan for the best and hope for that. Yeah. And that was his contingency plan. And I laughed because he was saying it in jest, but it was so funny that I've used it now when in certain briefings, I go, so normally what I like to do in case of an emergency or situation that's kind of getting a little bit out of control for our threat and error mitigation plan is I'll plan for the best and hope for that. And people look at me like, don't you mean plan for the worst and hope for the best? I'm like, nope. I said, that's super negative and I don't like to feel that way. Yeah. And I go, no, I'm just kidding. Come on, guys, like loosen up. Aviation's supposed to be fun, to have some fun with it. Yeah. So but I think that's one to talk about financially. And that's something we're trying to do at TPN is, in fact, for those of you who are out there who are, and I don't want to discourage pilots, but if you're a pilot and you're a personal financial counselor, or I would love for you to suggest somebody that you trust who is not a pilot to TPN, and we could vet them a little bit and get them on here as a podcast guest and maybe write a few articles on the best way that a young pilot specifically, but anybody in any phase of their career can go best about mitigating the retirement pitfalls that we're going to face, because let's put it out there quite earnestly. Contracts are a little different than they used to be. We make a really nice, healthy salary if you're at one of the legacy carriers or maybe one of the big seven, if you want to call it that. But insurance and retirements for most of those places are non-existent. And for all our girls and guys who have been hired from the regionals, they'll never have that military pension that some of us have. And honestly, I think there's a good chance that some of these brand new lieutenants, it's going to be a way different military pension than what we're facing. And TRICARE, I don't want to be the negative nanny in the house, but man, I'm not confident that's going to be there in 20 years when I need it. Yeah. So, for those points and more, if somebody's out there hears this, hit me up and I'll give you all the information at the end for how to connect with us to pass it along. But Ross brought up a great point that, you maybe wanted to be a little bit more financially prepped for that transitional piece, that transitional period of trying to earn the job at the airline and retire with grace from the military is another stolen line from Dave Ramsey that Matt and I use occasionally. So I think, and I just want to summarize this really quick. The things that you're talking about is de-stressing your life as you bolt from one job to the next. And because it is, especially for somebody who's been in the military for 20 years, you're doing something new. The old way of living is over. The new way of living is coming, and there's nothing you're going to do to stop it. And maybe, and I think hopefully, the pilot network, if you were part of it at that point, or if it's helped since, maybe it's some kind of the grid membership or mentorship instead of direct, but having somebody can kind of help you a little bit, guide you through. If it's not direct, a little indirect, or going and seeking out those kind of people, whether it's Emerald Coast, something you pay for, or finding somebody who is able to help you out is kind of one of the best ways to do some of that. And then it will help you. And I think for all of us, it's not necessarily about you don't have the capabilities or the knowledge base. You need to organize the knowledge base, and you need to know what you don't know, and you need to feel really confident in yourself going into that next phase, because that is what's going to get you where you want to be. Nothing else.
Yeah, I think if you're the one of those guys that doesn't mind walking into things not knowing anything about what you're walking into, then you would be okay. But for the majority of people, you like to know what you're walking into.
Sure.
And I think if you just take that time, like you said, however you got to do it, to find out that knowledge, it's out there. You can know exactly what you're going to walk into when you walk into that interview, or when you start that application. It's not a mystery out there unless you let it be a mystery to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great way to launch right into the last piece here. And this is my my attempt to blatantly and unapologetically copy Tim Ferriss, my favorite podcaster out there. For those of you who don't listen to the Tim Ferriss show, right after you're done listening to this one, if you got 2 hours to spare, pick one and go for it. They're all great. And he does not know that I even exist, but that's okay. I love his stuff, and I think everybody out there would benefit from having something like that to listen to a little more often. So this is the memory items. This is Ross's chance to deliver the boldface, the memory items, the whatever you guys call it, wherever you work, to everybody out there saying, hey, this is something you should do, something you should read, something like this to best help yourself going forward. So the first one, number one, what is something that our networkers and listeners should read or learn today to improve their position as an aviator, or more importantly, as a person?
So I'm going to recommend a book. It's about 30 years old. It's called The Overview Effect by Frank White. And it's the reason I'm recommending it. So the basic idea of this, and it kind of gets into a lot of what I've talked about and what going into being a pilot is all about, and our position as being kind of, I wouldn't say looking down on the world, but having a different perspective of the world. And basically, this book it's a collection. He went and interviewed lots of different astronauts who have been in space on the space station, and been even some of the moon astronauts landed there. And he coined this term, the overview effect, which basically, the further you get away from something, the bigger picture you can bring in to see it, the more connected you feel. So, the astronauts who were on the moon said that seeing the Earth from 250,000 miles away made them see the Earth in a completely different light than they'd ever seen it while they're living on the ground. Mm-hmm. And one of the stories that it talks about at the beginning, it's something we could all relate to as a pilot, where it talks about someone sitting in an aircraft going along at 35,000 feet, and you look down and you see a roadway that stretches off 50 miles, and you can see the whole road, and you can see a car on this end of the road and a car on this end of the road coming towards each other, and a little something about the world that those two people sitting there on the ground don't know. They're going to meet at some point. They're going to pass by. It's just kind of a little anecdote of, we get to see the world, from a different perspective, and and it should help kind of reading that from what the astronaut said, and it's something that was pretty much universal for those that have seen the planet from that height. And I would say it probably goes for most of the case for guys who have seen the planet from 70,000 feet as well. Yeah. It kind of changes your perspective on the planet we live on, and really just that you feel a little bit closer to where you live. So improving you as a person, I think that definitely would fit into that category.
Yeah, and not that Ross or I are people who should be telling everybody else how to be a better person. But yeah. I think if we take a little bit of what everybody says and combine it into our own little world, it's amazing how much improvement that we can make within ourselves at times. I know I have my daily missions that I have to accomplish to do that, but I think I'm better today than I was yesterday. So I think the overview effect by Frank White might help with that a little bit. And I love that idea of perspective shift.
Yep.
I think I try to incorporate that daily into my life. I really do. That is something that I look, I've spent more time looking out the window more often while I'm flying, as opposed to looking at everything else. Cause, it gives me a sense of, some things are different than what, they appear in everything else that is blasted in your face these days. And I try to share that with as many people as I can who don't have that experience. So, something that you have told, that memory item number two, something that you have told, the just starting out Ross, that is a must do.
So I kind of thought about this, and I think one of the biggest things, and I still struggle with it today, is you need to stop and enjoy where you're at right now.
Mm-hmm.
And
Amen.
and that doesn't mean necessarily where physically, but where you're at in your life right now. And don't always be looking across the horizon to where you hope to be or where you're going soon, and miss what you're doing now. I have 3 kids, and I know and you have a small kid as well, right?
That one on the way too,
and one on the way, that's crazy, yeah. So and I know the feeling. Any parent can sympathize with this, where you got a small kid that's 2 or 3 or whatever, and you're like thinking like, well, when they're 5 and when they're 7, when they're 8, like it's gonna be so much better because they're gonna know how to do that, and you end up, you're always kind of looking forward to what things are going to be, and you kind of miss out exactly what you're going through right then.
I cannot agree more. I've actually stopped doing. I have stopped doing that with my daughter 100%, and I enjoy. I tell her, I'm like, hey, you got to stop growing up because Dad enjoys this too much, and I don't even take it day by day. It's more of a just I watch her more than anything else instead of correct her, and I mean, that's kids. And there's a lot of people who don't have kids out there and don't even care to hear this discussion, but I think it helps and applies to everybody. I could not agree with you more. Enjoy where you're at now. Don't always be looking at what's next. Cause, especially in our cool job, like enjoy it, man. Like, there's days where I'm sitting at the hotel in Amsterdam or whatever, where I'm just like, I got stuff to do and I don't enjoy it. But I routinely tell myself, okay, today you're going to work on something, a project or whatever while you're on the road. So you don't get to enjoy it. But at least I'm thinking about it. And that to me, that's helped me. That's helped my mindset just a lot too with life in general with this job. All right. Number 3. What was the most helpful advice you've ever received? This is my favorite one, by the way.
So there's always a waiver.
Yes.
And I think at least most Air Force, probably most military guys can relate to that. But that it's, in the big picture of it is that you don't ever count yourself out. Don't ever count out, this potential job, this potential opportunity. It's not too old. Like you said, the pilot who was, thought he was too old for a private and all that kind of stuff. It's the same, it should be a mentality that there is a way for me to, if I want to do this, if I want to go down this road, there's a way. And generally it's going to be, you might have to go through several different iterations of finding the right person. Don't let, it's like in school, I would tell people an example. When I was in school, small rural town in North Carolina, and I said I wanted to go to the Air Force Academy, the guidance counselor was like, people don't go there from here. That's not even possible. It's like, But then I found people who had gone, and there was not many people in my town, but people outside, and, a lot of times just, you don't give up. You keep finding and then go to the next person. So you don't like that answer, go on. And eventually you're probably going to find someone that's like, oh yeah, you can write up. There's a waiver for that.
There is always a waiver. I could not agree more. Number 4, and finally, and I think this one sums up everything that we talked about pretty perfectly. What's your own memory item, your own thing that you want to pass on, something that I didn't pre-load for you?
The little thing that, and this kind of comes to a lot of the stuff I've talked about, and it basically it's in 3 words. So create, improve, and seek. So, uh, one of the things that, you make the podcast. I enjoy doing the photography. There's something that pretty much any of us can figure out that we can do to create. We're a society. We get kind of, I think once we stop being kids, we kind of get lulled into this. Now you're a consumer. You go out there and you consume items from the stores. You consume media that comes across your, Apple TV, and it's easy because it's spoon fed you literally in some cases. But you have to actually take the time sometimes to stop and actually do something that involves creation. And most people, you probably have an idea of what your own individual thing is for that. Like, I enjoy the photography, but also enjoy making videos or putting the photos in to make a video and stuff like that. And it's funny, one of the criticism, and I would say I've gotten this several times, when I would show a new video I made at the squadron of some flying stuff, and without fail, somebody was going, must be nice to have that much time on your hands. And, and they probably the night before had watched, the couple seasons of Game of Thrones or whatever. But since I actually took the time to make something new that no one had ever seen, you get a little bit of criticism for it because it's just not something we are attuned to in our society. And I think that even if you just do something for yourself, it doesn't have to be for the world and for the internet. And I'm sure the science backs it up. You're gonna help yourself. Even if you're a total math scientist guy, it's why they're trying to get art into the STEM stuff now, because they realize it has all these benefits when you actually create.
Yeah, absolutely. STEAM instead of STEM.
STEAM is the new thing. Yeah.
STEAM heat, baby.
So that was a long way on that. So create. So improve. So this is just kind of a personal thing. It's like I'm always wanting to try to improve myself somehow, whether it's improving a photography technique, improving my flying, getting into a new job. I had to obviously devote most of my time to learning a whole new job recently. I want to, get in, improve myself on that. Most of my last 4 to 5 years, I've been an instructor, and although I'm never stopping the improving myself game on that. Now it's, when I'm at the top of my game, I want to use my abilities to help improve others now as well. So you're always improving. The best leaders are the ones who don't go out there and tell you they're the best or show you they're the best. They're the ones that go out there and make everyone else better with them. So improve yourself, improve others around you. And then the last one is seek. So create, improve, seek. So always kind of seek out those new opportunities. Don't rely on others to give you the opportunities. Sometimes you can go out there and make your own one, think outside the box. And I was I use the example, in my career, I've had a lot of good assignments, and I won't take anything away from, the timing of that. There was good timing, things like that, that really helped out. But, for example, when I'm out at Ramstein, I had an assignment to C-17s going on, and I saw this opportunity arise to do something else. That's something I'd never even thought about. I jumped on that opportunity, and and it got me to do things I never would have thought possible. Once I was flying the U-2, I was kind of stuck in a rut deploying and all that, and eventually I kind of got tired. I'm like I'd like to kind of go do a staff job, maybe to get out of flying just for a little bit. I know that's blasphemy; most people would never say that, but I've been doing it 5-6 years. I'm like, all right, I want to go do something, and they say probably not going to happen. So I took another avenue and said, okay, I'm going to go. Can I go over to Korea and spend a year in Korea permanently, stationed over there? And that was kind of my springboard to get away from what they call the black hole at Beale. And suddenly I was able to start working other assignments. Found myself, I pressed very hard and got it, but got 3 years in Hawaii. So a lot of people look at it like, you're lucky you've had Ramstein, you've had Hawaii. But a lot of that's been me seeking out those opportunities and pursuing them, and not having someone go, here's the 2 things you can possibly do. I want to be like, okay, I see that, but what about this 3rd or 4th option over here?
Yeah, I'll raise you. I'll raise your 2 or 3 with 4 or 5 and see what I come up with. Couldn't agree more. I did the same thing. So I think create, improve, and seek. And I think that last one, seek, and improve too. Hopefully all the networkers listening to this and the other folks who are out there can use TPEd to help that with more than just finding the job, because there's so much more after you get the job. Ross is a perfect example. He's got it now, and he's just learning the other side of the house. And there's, as well as I do, we don't have to get into it, but there's a lot, especially that first year. And I think we're going to close a little bit on that note, but I want to open the floor up for one or last of anything else that you want to add. Of course, where they can find you, how they can reach you, because hopefully this will be a springboard to really take Extreme Ross photography up to the next level, maybe far beyond 70,000 feet, and blanket the world with some really cool aviation-inspired photography, space-inspired photography as well.
Yes, exactly. So I alluded to it before. But it's on SmugMug is Extreme Ross Photography. So again, you should be able to just Google that. If you add SmugMug in, it should bring up the site.
Okay.
But the actual website as well, it's going to be extremerossphotography.smugmug.com.
Okay.
That should take you to the site. On that, there's a way you can actually email me straight from that site. It goes to extremerossphotography@gmail.com. So you can contact me directly through that. I've had a lot of guys do that. A lot of guys message me directly through Facebook as well. If you go on to Facebook, just search Extreme Ross Photography. You should see the group, Extreme Ross Photography group, come up, and you can just click join on that. I haven't found a reason to not let anybody join that yet. So, but it's up, several thousand people right now. So hopefully we can get some more after that. And then I'm going to hopefully do a little bit more. I've been posting on it some, but hopefully I'll be posting kind of regularly on that. I still have a lot of material I've never actually edited and done anything with from my days in the YouTube. The one thing I was kind of concerned about with this was, once I get out of the YouTube, am I ever going to get good material again? And well, I know I'm not going to get anything, like me in a spacesuit in front of the Northern Lights. I still want to improve my photography, and eventually just not be recognized as just this good YouTube photographer, but just a good photographer in general. And hopefully have some more things, and I have a lot of ideas on that. There's things I want to write. Like I said, a couple, there's always things bouncing around in my head as far as videos to make, screenplays to write, and there's books I want to write, and just some of them just on different experiences I've had in the jet.
That sounds like a creating and improving and seeking worthwhile life. And I think the network, I know me personally, I can't wait to follow more of everything you're going to do going forward. And we are here to support that. Easiest way to get a hold of Ross and take a look at what he's got is just Google Extreme Ross Photography. We'll probably throw a lot of that up in the show notes if we can get all the links in there, and then his email address and all that good stuff too, for those of you who have the capability to look through that. Otherwise, just a simple Google search will get you what you want, but we'll link everything in the show notes as deemed appropriate. And for those of you out there trying to get a hold of Matt or I, you can hit us up at heyguys@thepilotnetwork.org, or reach out to us through our The Pilot Network Facebook page inbox. In fact, we've had a couple of interesting people write in lately talking about some of the more controversial discussions that have happened on the Pilot Network. And I want to take an opportunity real quick to address that and just say, we love having everybody converse and talk. And remember out there, if you're writing on a social media platform, that even though I administrate very tightly, there are people that are watching your every move out there. And if you post something on a group and they search you out, they can find you and look at what you're writing. And if you're looking for a really nice job at a really nice airline or a nice corporate gig, and they have somebody find stuff that you are being a little bit more boisterous about than they deem fit for their organization, they may not hire you. So take that as a whatever you want to take that as, and run with it. But again, heyguys@pilotnetwork.org or on the Facebook page, The Pilot Network, shoot us a message. And those are the fastest two ways to get a hold of Matt or I. We'll respond as we get them. Sometimes we take a couple of days off because we're out on the road, we're hanging with the family, we're trying to better the network, and communications are not our utmost priority. They normally are, but every now and again they fall to second place. So again, thanks for listening. We love having a podcast, and we want to do a lot more of them. And the best way we're going to be able to do more of them is more people support the network. You can go on the Patreon account, patreon.org, and you can type in the Pilot Network. For those of you out there on the road, fly safe. For those of you at home, enjoy your time off. And always remember to please keep the bright, shiny side up and the greasy side down. Until next time, see you later.